Hello, everybody. Andy here from Glass Half Dead, the number one best kill team on the internet. Unless, of course, you are aware of literally any other kill team channel on the internet. Hello. Today, I want to talk about why Wolf Scouts break kill team. Yes, that's very inflammatory language because it's YouTube. And if you're not clickbaiting a little bit, what are you doing with your life? You're not getting views, is what you're doing. So it's really just kind of a breakdown and a look at Wolf Scouts. And I am going to talk about why they break kill team. But that's more a discussion of how to fix them and what is wrong with them. And of course, we know that there is a balance patch coming in probably January, in like 2, 3 weeks, right? And whatever decisions GW has made have been made like 2 months ago, right? So this is in no way aimed at GW. It's more a discussion between the community about how GW can fix these, what worrying concerns we may have about the balance of Canoptech Deathwatch, Tau Stealth Suits, and Wolves, and how that might impact things going forwards, blah, blah, blah. Cool, cool, cool. All right, let's talk about the Wolf Scouts specifically. I am going to talk about, I've taken notes because I'll forget. What makes them strong, and then the fact that that's too strong, and then the concept of like it's all a relative perspective, and most teams will have good matches and bad matches, and they will be strong into some teams but weak into some teams, and how that has been how Kill Team has always been. We've always had good and bad matches. Talk about that then. Um, but then maybe why it seems like we're moving beyond that. And is that the beginning of power creep? Is that beginning of just a different way the game wants to be balanced? Rock, paper, scissors versus just being OP. And then how can we fix Wolf Scouts? Which, I don't want to jerk myself off too much for this, but I think that actually keeping the flavor of Wolf Scouts is quite easy whilst stopping them from being absolutely OP bonkers. And I don't think it even needs that much. Cool. All right. With that said, everybody, let's get straight into it. But of course, before we get straight into it, I would like to give you a subscriber-only benefit. And that subscriber-only benefit is a big double hello. Wow, so wholesome. Truly the wholesomeness knows no bounds in the world of Glass Half Dead. Hey, if you're ever buying Warhammer, you should click one of my affiliate links, or if not mine, any affiliate link. I use Element, Wayland, and Red October Games in the UK. These are the reasons why I use them. If you're in Canada, check out Northern Citadel. If you're in America, check out Wargame Portal. If you don't want to use my affiliate link, use somebody's. Your favorite YouTuber will have an affiliate link to somewhere in your country. Additionally, do consider checking out the Crossfire All-in-One system or the GG Easy All-in-One system if you want to carry your models to places. Cool. For kill teams specifically. Right. Let's discuss, shall we? Let's start with what makes Wolf Scouts broken. Okay, that's a nice, easy question to answer. And it's easy to look at. Okay, so first things first. They've been out for a long time, and to answer any questions, yes, they are broken. They are way too overpowered. That can be seen in the stats. Even though it's still early days for stats, I honestly can only see them getting stronger because if you think of the team, they are a 5.5 model team. The Wolf isn't a real Marine. So when you're comparing them to what we already know of like Deathwatch or Angels of Death or Nemclaw or whatever, they are more towards Deathwatch than they are towards AOD. Okay? As such, they do need to be good, right? Every individual model does need to be stronger than a regular Marine, right? Keep that in mind. That's just how the game is balanced. If we accept that AOD and Nemclaw are balanced, then a single model from Wolf Scouts must be stronger than a single model from AOD. Cool? All right, good. That is just the numbers. Easy peasy. So with that in mind, when you're looking at the individuals, you cannot just look at a combo they have and say, wow, that's really broken. Because all Marines are really strong and broken. And as soon as you read a Marine profile and their rules, you're like, if you're thinking of anything other than just, I'm an elite player, so I only play elite and I know nothing else, you have to look at those numbers and say, wow, I'm screwed. I can't beat that. But that's any Marine. Even if you're just looking at an assault intercessor, you look at that and say, oh yeah, I can't beat that. And you're right, you can't. A single model from any other faction cannot beat one of these models, and that's okay. So do keep the couch this whole conversation within that knowledge because that is just true. Cool. All right. So there are 7 rules that make this team too strong. And I'm not going to say things like, oh, they have 5 attack dice that hit on 3s, 4, 5 damage. Nope, that's a Marine stat line. They need, like, if they didn't have that, what would they have? I don't know. So the first thing that makes them too strong is charge from conceal. This is incredibly strong. This is outrageous. This is OP. Obviously, I'm about to say 7 different rules. If you remove one of these rules, the team's probably fine. But everything added together is very bad. So charge from conceal, okay? They can deal damage at the end of the fight. This means that the team itself can play in an entirely different way to any other team, where normally you have to, you know, just hit as much as you can or decide to parry out and then maybe get them with the next activation. This team basically gets an additional attack at the end of their fight. Okay, you have a 13-inch storm. So, in case you don't know what the storm is, which we do have to discuss because it is absolutely insane, basically they get all of their buffs when they are within the storm. A storm is a 20 mil marker, as all markers are. Token, the token. No, it's a marker. It's on screen. It's a storm marker. Okay. Which is 20 mil, and you have to be within 6 inches of that storm marker to get the buff and count as being in the storm. Cool, love it. We'll talk about the fixes soon, but it's going to focus on the storm, obviously. The storm itself doesn't do much. It just allows them to charge from conceal, but a lot of their ploys and such need them to be in the storm to work. One of their big things is their ploys, obviously. So it's Storm's Bite is really, really strong. And the thing that, for me, the layman that immediately made me think, oh, these might be a problem was this one. And that is -1 to the attack stat of the enemy to a minimum of 3. Fine. They can also, they have an operative called the Frost Bite. Frost Wolf? No, what's he called? Frost something. Trapmaster. It's too many Trapmasters. Okay. Gunner. Frost Eye. Thank you. So the Frost Eye has an ability where he can guard on Volcus or the open. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. In case you don't know, with the guard action, even if you have a silent weapon, you must go to engage to perform the guard action. Lovely. No issues with that. However, he has a special ability here that allows him to use the guard action from conceal. Cool, fine. We'll discuss that. We then have the wolf. Now, the wolf is really... Oh, you always take the Fang Bearer. The Fang Bearer can heal, which is fine inherently. I think having a heal that you actively have to do as an action is okay. Fine. However, if you take him, and you literally will always take him, you never count as injured, so that's very strong, obviously. You can never lose an APL, so you're completely immune to stuns and such, and you cannot be messed around with shock. In case you don't know what shock is, some weapons have shock. When you hit with a crit, you also discard one of the enemy's normals, which is fine. They can keep that one. That's fine. I mean, it's good. It's still useful to have. You're still taking the Fang Bearer every time. It's not bad, but they can keep it. That's not making them OP. It's in fact, you know what? I actually have no issue with this one. There you go. They kind of need it. If you keep in mind that they are a low model team that is inherently weaker because they have fewer models than a normal AOD or whatever, they need to be able to ignore injured and not have their stats reduced. If you could reduce their stats, you just stun grenade them, spam, right? And there are some teams that have great access to stuns. Anyway, we then talk about the wolf. Now, I don't really see people mentioning the wolf being a big issue. I think he's absolutely insane. So the wolf can be used in different ways, and to my mind, he is a Vox Scream, but he's a Vox Scream that will also deal 9 damage to the enemy. That's basically how I view him. To cover what the wolf is, you can do a once per battle, so you don't do it once, strategic gambit. Strategic gambit, think of it this way. You've moved up turn 1, cool. You know how staging normally works. Will have placed a threat here and a threat there, and whoever gets the initiative, they'll probably deal with the threat here. But you've obviously, being a smart, big brain player, you've put forward another threat. So whichever one they go for, you still have actions to take, trades to begin. Cool. That's how Kill Team normally works at my level, right? So the strategic gambit of the wolf here, in essence, allows you to make an action, which will be a charge, that happens in the strategic gambit step. So you cannot react to it, and they will be able to charge you, lock you up. Now that's fine, like they can then choose to lock you down and make the fight first, or because this is 9 wounds. If you're a marine, we can hope that you would kill him in 2, so a crit and a hit, but it means you'll be taking 5 damage first. So yeah, there you go. It is what it is. It's again, I think of it just as being a wolf Vox Scream that will deal damage once per turn, once per game. I think he's very strong, and you might be thinking, oh well, he's got a threat range and it's just a charge, so you can deal with that. Yeah, so turn 1, 8-inch move, you've got an 11-inch, so move dash. So 11 inches, that gets you over the halfway line. And then turn 2, you would charge, so that gives you a 10-inch charge, which means that your total threat range actually is 21 inches. So you literally cannot avoid the wolf. There you go. Something to consider. We should also briefly talk about scoring. That's their things, okay? That's their 7 key rules that make them OP. Fine. We do need to talk about scoring very briefly. They have access to Recon and Seek and Destroy. I've seen a lot of people online talk about they should go route, and I'm so confused by that decision, or dominate. I do not think this is a team you should play that with. This is a team that the enemy has to come to you. So because you can charge for conceal, you can be very aggressive and still safe. So you always play flank. I genuinely don't know when you wouldn't play flank with this team. I think that is just easier to score than by using anything else you have access to. Route is in essence flank, but more easier to deny. That's my view on this particular team. I'm not saying that's always the case, but with this team, it definitely is. So we could just assume that they go flank, and they will just run past you and hold down one side of the board. And if you want to come at them, they will win. There you go. Cool. Right. We also have to talk about the size of the storm very briefly. Sorry. So it's a 13-inch bubble, which is 20 mil plus 6 either side. Let's just call it 13. It's actually 12.7, right? We call it 13. In case you don't know, 13 inches on every map on Volcus gives you access to two objectives. So it will completely cover 2 objectives, the middle objective and an objective on one side or the other. So that's easy. There may even be some where it covers just all 3, but you don't need that. It's fine. Cool. Okay, so that's important because, of course, you get all of your buffs when you're in the storm. If you can have your storm easily placed directly over 2 objectives, you're fine. Lovely. Great. You can assume that they will always be fully buffed in the storm. With a 13-inch storm, that is very easy. Nice. Cool. Right. Okay. That is what makes the Wolf Scouts strong. There's more to them. Obviously, they're still a 7-inch move elite team. That's very good in itself. 7 inches is great. We all wish we had that, don't we, lads? Kill me, Jesus Christ. But yes, right. So all of these make them very strong, but it also makes them very easy to play. And that is, I think, the problem with Kill Team at the moment. And now I've said this for a long time. In fact, this entire edition, I think that Marines are too strong. And I say that as a Marine player. And I'm not saying I win every match. However, I genuinely think that Marines are currently overtuned for what the game is. And that's a problem because not only are they a little bit too strong, but they are also very easy to play. And I think that having such a low skill floor and ceiling with the majority of teams, because let's be clear, 70% of the game is elites. I want to be clear on that. If we look at the numbers, 70% made up by 30% of teams played in tournaments are elite teams, assuming that we count elites up to 8 models. If you only count up to 6, that's different. And maybe we should reconsider that, but that's for another video. Yeah, so because they are inherently just very strong on their data sheets, and what they want to do is charge and kill stuff, and they do that incredibly effectively, it means that to play an elite team, you have to be whatever, some level of skill, and then you have this muddy middle where people want to play things other than elites, but you have to have this such a big jump up from elite player to like, okay, I'm now beating elites as other teams, reliably, consistently. There's this muddy middle of power within Kill Team, which is basically what defines all of the win rates in Kill Team. Because you'll talk to, you know, pro players, top players who are like, yeah, I can beat Deathwatch, Wrecker Crew, Wolf Scouts, no problem, easy peasy, not a concern. And they'll be playing some weird team like Navy Breaches or something, and like, yeah, easy, no problem. Like, oh, okay, all right then. And because they've managed to break out of that muddy middle, but most of us will never leave that, and that's fine. And we should understand that is the game. That is what everybody will be playing. And the problem is that elites in general are too easy to play, and this team does everything it wants to do so easily, and that's a real problem. If you think about other teams, if you think about whatever, Nemclaw, AOD, they have things they can do, Deathwatch, they have things they can do, but to do those things, you have to know the game. You have to understand what you're doing. You have to do things at the right time. And these are to different gradients on the different elite teams, obviously. And in essence, what you have to do there with the timing and the order of operations, etc., is the same as you have to do on every team, but you've only got 6 models. That's inherently easier to do. And also just you're incredibly durable and aggressive on your data sheet, so you can mess up and still have a good game, whereas other teams struggle to do that. But when it comes to this team, you almost can't mess it up, right? Like, it's so difficult to as long as you have a very vague plan, this team kind of can't mess up. There you go. So because they're a strong team and they're so easy to play, that is bad. When you are balancing, you really don't want easy, strong teams. Sorry. You can have that. That's okay. But the strength of that team should never be actually the strongest in the game, right? Think of it this way. If you are playing the hardest team in the game that most people would call the weakest team, but you look at pro players, top players, and they're like, no, that team's secretly the best team in the game. It's just if you make a single mistake, if you make one mishap, you've just completely fallen apart. That is actually a good level of balance. That means the balance is right. For some, you don't want every team to be that way, right? But some teams should be that, because what you're then saying is that the game and that team has a high skill ceiling. It means there's a lot of room for player expression. If you take that team that's nearly impossible to win with, but when you get everything to go off, and it's not dice based, when you get everything to go off, it is actually the strongest team in the game, or stronger than the team the opponent is playing. And then you have the other opponent's team where they just win regardless. They don't need their stuff to go off. They're still stronger than you. And in fact, when they then get all of their easier to get off stuff to go off, they are still above you in your strength level, okay? That is very bad. That is a terrible way to balance a game. We do not want that in any game, okay? You want skill expression to be the ultimate kind of level, right? Okay, cool, right, let's move on. There's also this minor note of like a relative perspective on these teams, which is the concept of hard counters in Kill Team. So hard counters are what we might consider in the past. Kill Team was balanced more, in my opinion, around kind of a soft counter where you have good matches and bad matches, and a good matchup would mean that your damage points and your health points have a good break point with the enemy's damage points and health points, right? Like, for example, if the enemy is 7 health and your gun is doing 3, 4 damage, that is a good break point for you because it means you just need a crit and a hit to go through, and that is ideal. Okay. Whereas if they were 8 health, suddenly you need 2 crits to go through, and that's actually statistically a lot harder to get through, right? So, just very roughly, and that would define a lot of games. How many successes do you need to go through on the enemy to get a kill? That's going to define if you have a good match or a bad match. As Kill Team is continuing to evolve, I think it is moving away from these soft counters and moving more towards hard counters. How do we define a hard counter? That's for another video. However, very roughly, we would define a hard counter as being the thing that makes your team work directly stops something that makes the enemy team work. Okay? Very roughly. Now, obviously, there's levels to this and degrees and such, and there's still, okay, well, yeah, your team turns off everything my team does, but actually, I have double the model count. So let's see what happens, right? So it is still, it fluctuates, but that's roughly what a hard counter is. And I think that the problem with Wolf Scouts is that they hard counter a lot of teams. For example, if your team, interestingly, they're probably, I think their worst matchup is other elites or other Marines. But let's say that your team only has 4 attack dice when they attack. Well, this team turns that to 3 attack dice, and you're screwed. There you go. 3 attack dice means that you hit once, you get parried, and you're done. There you go. That's how that works. There you go. And so that means that if you have a 4 attack team, you probably need, again, depending, but you probably need to think about shooting this team instead of fighting it, which is fine. It's okay that there are teams that demand your team play a different way. Except this team cannot be shot. Why? Because they're always going to be concealed. Cool. Right. Moving on. That's a little bit of like, how do you know when a team, we're almost there. We're almost on to how to beat them, how to change them. Sorry. There's the final thing. So this leads to the concept of rock, paper, scissors matchups, which we could argue is hard counters. And how do we know that this isn't just a rock, paper, scissors matchup versus are they OP? We know that they're OP from the stats. The stats are very, very clear. They have an incredibly high pick rate. They have an incredibly high win rate. And they have an incredibly high podium rate. With all those 3 things lined up, this team is ridiculous. And that can very clearly be seen in the stats at this point in the game. Cool. Nice. It doesn't even need discussion. It just is the case. So how do we fix the Wolf Scouts? Now, I, in the past, have definitely been pretty low on how GW has responded to Canoptek and Deathwatch. I really feel like there are clear issues that they need to be faster to respond to. However, I do appreciate that some things, waver, go up and down. Like, are Tau Stealth Suits actually a bad team? Or are they just a team that's never been played this way before, so we don't know how to play them? And it's like having to learn a whole new game just because there's Tau Stealth Suits that don't play how other teams are played. It's a valid question. And with a team like that, I'd say let them simmer for a little bit, right? We don't know yet. It could be one of those situations where once one person figures out how to play them, everybody else is, much like happened with Blades of Cain. Everybody else will say, "Oh, I get it now. Okay, let's play that way." And then suddenly they absolutely skyrocket. And then you wouldn't want that team to be buffed, would you? Fine. However, I think there are other teams where they're a slightly more standard team, and it's very clear straight away that, yeah, that team's too strong or too weak or whatever. And I would definitely like to see a slightly more reactive kind of response, a reactive response from GW with those more basic teams, perhaps. Right. But, also, before I get on to how to fix them, it is a very valid, also, although I would like them to hurry up on obvious teams, I think I'm just going to say, I think I'm a really good barometer for whether or not a team is broken or not. Um, and the fact that a lot of people online feel that Deathwatch are broken, but I don't, probably means they're not broken. There you go. Look, guys, I'm a pussy. I just refuse to play into teams I think are too strong. Right? I'll just tell my opponent, yeah, don't play that team. Otherwise, I just won't play. That's me. That's who I am, and I'm willing to play into Deathwatch. If my opponent said I'll play Canoptech, I'll tell you, fuck off, mate. I don't want to play. But I'm happy to play into Deathwatch. And as dumb as that might sound, I actually think that that alone means that Deathwatch are probably fine. Otherwise, yeah. Because if they were broken, I just wouldn't play into them. There you go. Right. Cool. Or I play into them once and say, never do that to me again, mate. Thank you. Okay. How do we fix the team? So, to very quickly recap their 7 key rules, they have charge through conceal, they have damage on the fight end. Sorry. Just to tell you how strong that is again, don't forget that they are minusing one of your attack dice. And then at the end of the fight, if they have lived, they will do D3 plus 1 damage. We call it 3 damage because that's statistically what it will be, right? D3, average is 2 plus 1, 3 damage. Okay? They are 4/5 dice, lethal 5s, always. So keep that in mind. And what that means is that in essence, whilst you are -1 attack dice, they are actually +1 attack dice. So if you are, so think of it this way: you're a four attack guy. You're a wrecker, right? You're a wrecker with your insane 5/6 damage. You're charging in. Um, you're down to 4 dice. Sorry, you're down to 3 dice because they're 4 dice normally. You're down to 3, and you're thinking, okay, well, 3 dice, that's not great. I'm going to use all my wrecker points to push 3 through. The enemy has 6 dice in essence, because they're 5 normally, and then they have the 3 as the final hit. So they have extra dice to parry you out. When you're doing your maths about, well, okay, I know I can normally kill in 3, but actually, the blah, 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 and then I'm going to charge so I can make that sure that happens, and they block the second dice, that's fine, but then I've still got 1 more, so I can kill in 2, okay, but I need 3 hits, okay. I was like, yeah. Basically, in essence, the wolves get an additional parry dice, really. That's how I view it. Okay, anyway, right. 13-inch storm, -1 enemy attack dice, shoot, guard, conceal, silent, shoot, guard, conceal, wolf, fox, scream, never injured or stunned. Those 7 rules are what make this team OP and easy. So you've got to think about it, right? You don't want to strip this team of what makes them individually the best models in the game. Because again, the only team that should be on the data sheet stronger than them is Deathwatch and Raveners. Every other team, this team should, on the data sheet, be stronger than. Keep that in mind. So with that in mind, I personally hate -1 enemy attack dice. I really dislike it. However, I actually think the team needs it. I know, that's crazy. So when you are thinking that, what you have to do is go here. And so it's whenever an enemy operative is within your storm. Cool. Fine. So how do you fix that? Charging from conceal is very, very strong. But again, I think this team needs it. Okay. I I really feel like I'm betraying myself on this one. I've put out all of these reasons as to why they're good. However, how do you get the charge from conceal? You must begin or end your charge within the storm. Okay. We can all see where it's going, but let's keep going down the logic tree. Um, Damage on fight end doesn't require the storm. I don't like this, but I think it's not absolutely broken in a vacuum, so we can ignore it, right? D3 plus 1. I don't really like D3. It should just do 3 damage, but whatever, it's fine. We can then do... We'll ignore the storm, because obviously that's the answer. Shoot, guard, conceal. This needs to be discussed. So, shoot, guard, conceal, silent. Let's talk about the Frost Eye. This guy needs to be hard nerfed. I genuinely think that this model, the designers were hitting the pipe hard on this one, guys. This guy goes against everything Kill Team rules design has been about, and in my opinion, is the most concerning model on the team because they have given them a silent weapon. They can guard, on, conceal. I think that if this was intentional and not a typo, then maybe the balance of Kill Team is lost. Because this is antithetical to everything that Kill Team has tried to implement in the game. And I will mention this in a future video about power creep, this particular model, but not now. This guy needs to lose something. I actually don't mind the first guard on conceal. I suspect what we need to do with him simply is put him from silent to being concealed positions, which we've seen on many other operatives, which is the first shot in the game is silent, and then after that, they go back to normal. This would only be the tiniest of nerf, but it would mean that they can't just infinitely stay on a vantage point and never be touched. Cool. I don't think this operative should have silence. I think you have to force this guy at some point to go loud. Nice. Never injured or stunned. I'm okay with that. I think this team needs it. Again, I realize that I've pointed to all of the things that makes the team OP, and apart from one of them have said, I think the team needs it actually. But yeah, Wolf Vox Scream is the final one before we get to the storm size, and that is, I really don't like this. It has too high of a move rate. I think what this should be instead is you change the pounce rule to say that this is a common thing that they have in the game. So it's not crazy to say this, but just say, you know, if you perform this action, you cannot move more than X inches. I would say maybe 6, something like that. So yeah, something like that. That would just lower the effectiveness of it, because at the moment, having that 10-inch threat range as a strategic gambit, I just think is a silly, silly thing to have in the game. Although I will say, in regards to the Frost Eye there, whereas I think that the Frost Eye is antithetical to the balance of Kill Team and its game design in general, I don't think that's the case for the Pounce ability. It's just something that I think increases the power level of the team by a little bit too much. There you go. Cool. Right. With that said, what else do we have? Oh yeah. So let's talk about the storm. So the storm size. That's what we're all talking about, isn't it? A 13-inch storm bubble, which is your 20 mil plus your 6 either side. If we say that yes, this team has to have something, how do you change that? How do you change the storm, like the abilities that I think this team needs to be able to actually beat, let us say, for example, Deathwatch, right? If the team doesn't have any of those tricks, they cannot. They would then be hard countered by a more elite team like Raveners or Deathwatch, right? And that's not good. So they do need those tricks. However, they need to get those tricks by being in the storm or having the enemy in the storm. With a 13-inch bubble, as discussed, you can easily have your entire team within the storm covering fully 2 objectives. Fine. We then have to think, What is so obviously we make the storms smaller. That's a given. I think that's super easy to say. We might also want to consider for the storm. We might, I think. So I've heard some people say like we should remove the ability to let them move the storm. I disagree. I think keep cool the storm because that actually allows them to play into good decision making. So if you make the storm smaller, but they have the ability to move the storm when they need it, that's fun. That's additional things they have to think about and trade offs they have to make. So the question becomes, what size storm do you want? So the obvious first answer is that the storm should never be able to touch two objective markers on focus, right? We don't want this team to be fully buffed on two objective markers. That's a thing I'm saying. I don't need any proof to say that. Thumbs up, I'm correct. Good. So I've seen people say lower it to 4 inches, which is what GW normally does. If they have an ability that is 6 inches, they then lower it to 4. I guess, don't know why. That seems to be the number they like. So I imagine that is what they're going to do. I think it needs to be smaller. So don't forget, 4 inches is really 9 inches. We would all still love a 9-incher. That's too big. What my girlfriend says, at least. So I think we need smaller. Keeping in mind that I'm now actually saying the only change this team needs, don't take away any of their good stuff, nothing. I think they need all of that charge from conceal, damage on fight end, minus attack dice, blah, blah, blah. I think it needs that. Just make the storm smaller. Make that decision. Give them a base to fight on, but make sure that when they're not in that base, they do just crumble, which is what will happen to this team if you make that storm smaller, which is a good thing. Make them have to make tough choices. If they're being pushed on two flanks, make them have to decide which flank to deal with, right? Right now, they just deal with it all. So I actually think that the maximum size the storm should be is a 3-inch radius. That's still 7 inches. That's 20 mil plus 3 either side. That's a 7-inch radius. That can still touch 2 objective markers on focus. I would hesitate to then say, actually, it should be 2, because then you're getting possibly a bit too small. I agree on that one. So I think if the only thing this team gets, if the team gets nerfed so that the storm goes down to a 2-inch radius, I would say, okay, yeah, team's fine. Team's done. You don't need to change anything else about the team. This team is now good to go. I will accept that that's not going to happen. So if we're lucky, it will go down to a 3, not a 4. A 4 is still too much. It should go down to a 3-inch radius. And then it can probably just keep everything else that it has. And actually, that forces the team to have to make so many decisions that I think that's actually all it needs, genuinely. Cool. Okay, there you go. End of sentence, end of video. If you watch till the end of the video, I'd like to give you a big triple hello. Wow, so wholesome. Let me know what you think. Do you think a 3-inch radius and no other changes is too much? Well, a 3-inch radius and concealed positions. Let me know. Merry Christmas. Goodbye.